I've got some awesome news for you, fellas. So we've just released our own game called Garage 54, which precisely corresponds with our own story. You can go ahead and log on and start with a modest garage, begin producing some small-scale vids, work on a few humble cars, and gradually build your way up from there. Grow just like we did back in the day. Hire a camera crew and some mechanics, move into a new garage, buy yourself some new equipment, edit some videos, grow a huge fan base. Get around to doing a few serious project cars, which you can then proceed to enter into races with other players. So yeah, basically the game is a reflection of our own journey. You can download the game for both iOS and Android devices. You'll find all the links in the video description. So go ahead and have a look, download the game, install it onto your phone, and have a ball. Hey there, fellas. So today we've chosen the street. So you might have heard the stories that some people tell. When somebody would buy a car and have zero idea how to... It's kind of a hard thing to wrap your head around. But for a second, let's say that you put your paddle gearbox into manual mode. Now this to me does sound like something you could believe. And so then your car is in first gear, and here you are hammering down the road, beating the crap out of your car, and bang! Your motor either catches fire, or melts, or some other thing happens to it. So according to auto journalists who've done some research, them being the meticulous people that they are, right, so they'd ask around and they'd hear stories about how a car would drive around for a day with no issues, and then all of a sudden something would go wrong with it. Anyway, so here's where I'm going with this. Let's say you bought a car with a stick shift. Seriously, how can you drive around in first gear all the time? I literally can't even picture something like that happening. If someone for their entire life used to drive automatic, upon climbing into a manual transmission car, they should probably ask the question why there are 3 pedals in here instead of 2. But then again, that's beside the point. We'd like to try and see what exactly happens to an engine. As in, we're looking to see how long it'll last, time and distance-wise, and what'll happen to it. So right here we have a car, which you might remember. The engine in this one is good, everything is fine, and now let's fire it up, engage first gear. My suspicion is that since people would probably want to get up to a decent speed, first gear or not, they're most likely going to be pushing the gas with quite some enthusiasm. If that's the case, then I too will be pinning that pedal to the metal. Let's see what comes out of this. Let's do this. We've reset the odometer. It's on 0, so that we can measure the distance. There we go. First gear. We've got the car in gear. Let's roll. Though I honestly can't even imagine how fast a Lada can go in first gear. Okay, this is already tons of fun. You know what I think? It'll certainly last for 40 kilometers. Maybe even a bit more. What do we got? I have a feeling that the engine temperature is already up there. I'm quite sure that the engine is already running hot. I have driven 1 kilometer. (2,200 meters. So far, so good. What's happening? It just spat out all the coolant. But we are still moving. Very nice. Let's keep going. There's smoke coming from all over. The alternator light just came on. So the alternator is no longer functional. Oh, really? That's it. We're done. Let's see what we got. Allow me to show you the readout on our race logic. We've driven 3,701 kilometers. And that's it. The LOT engine was like, I'm out. I've got an oil light. So I'm still puzzled as to why the alternator tapped out. So the fact that I was driving in first gear for so long, maybe the belt snapped. Let me take a look. Maybe it's gone altogether. We will see in a second. Okay, so here's the picture we're looking at. I was 107% correct about the belt. It left, and that's why we had no charge. So apparently even the belt gets really warm. Maybe it expands and begins to stick. Sometimes they even flip at high revs. Though in our case it simply fell off. Maybe with the pulleys being slightly uneven, when you get up to such high revs, the belt begins to bind up, and then it abandons ship. As for the engine, well, you can clearly see that we've got a smoke show happening. The oil is boiling. We've got something boiling on the intake manifold. The coolant we had in there, it escaped after I drove maybe about 2 kilometers and change, and then it just began to come out of every orifice. We saw a massive fountain coming out from the radiator, the overflow tank, and there's no more left in there. It's currently splashed all over the pavement somewhere. Some of it evaporated, some is left in the form of droplets. You might have noticed that when it all started to come out, the coolant, I mean, something popped, and the engine note changed for some reason. Can't imagine why so. I'm quite sure that the engine is already running hot. What's happening? And here's the culprit. We've got a blown hose, and it is completely rooted due to the pressure in the system climbing so high. At some point, the hose decided it was tired, and that's when all of the coolant spilled onto the road, as a result of the hose giving up in such spectacular fashion. All due to high temperature. Plus, we've got an engine that's completely covered in oil. Right, I see, it came from the breather. We were meant to have an air cleaner sitting on the carburetor, which is what that tube was supposed to be tied into. I'm of course referring to the air cleaner assembly. If it began to throw oil at such a rate, I doubt I would have made it 3,000 meters down the road, since all of this would have been covered in oil, either suffocating the motor or clogging the jets on the carburetor, or something else might have gone wrong. So 3.7 kilometers, or 2.3 miles, and we're done. Apparently that's all this LOT motor had in it. And I'm surprised, actually. I thought it would last for 7 or 10 Ks, but it didn't. At this sort of speed, it lacks proper cooling, due to there not being enough air flowing through the radiator. The fan was flipped on manually, but that didn't stop the engine overheating. What exactly happened to it, I still don't know. I'm guessing the heat made for some ridiculous clearances. Something might have even spun around in there. Anyway, we'll let it sit around for a bit, and then try to fire it right back up again. Okay, let's try starting it up. My point exactly. Maybe we try push starting it. It is worth a try. What is wrong with you? Well, yeah, or it burned out. I'm not sure, maybe that wire is scorched. Are we really gonna have to push it? So the starter motor doesn't want to budge. I guess we try second or even third. Let's do this. Seriously? The gearbox is also dead? It's in. Got it in? I can't get the clutch in, though. Sounds about right. It ain't pushing in. The clutch is also toast. Oh my god. Yeah, the pedal is just dangling there. See how it's just limp? The piston might not be returning, or maybe something is bent up in there. I don't see any articulation. Oh, something's happening. We can try one more time. Nope. I guess we're done then. That's it. Right, fellas, there's a bit of weirdness happening. The clutch no longer works. Why? Well, we have absolutely no idea. The engine and the clutch are their own separate things, right? Can't imagine why the clutch ain't working. Probably because LOTA, but what can you do? It won't start, we can't even push it forward. And even when we try to push it in neutral and then engage second, it simply won't go in. How could it when the clutch isn't working? So yeah, that's quite obviously not an option. Right, we can't get this thing to run. The starter motor is also dead, which is pretty amazing. Then again, that is actually explainable. Probably a short circuit somewhere, or a wire might have gotten cooked. Though I did give those wires a tug and they are attached. The fuses are also fine. It's all a big mystery. So what sort of conclusions can we draw from this? Don't be tearing ass in first gear. Don't do it. Your car won't last long in that case. The primary reason your engine would go down is the obvious overheating. Secondly, it's operating at extremely high revs. And given the combination of extreme heat and such high revs, you might have a bearing stick or a valve detach, a push rod or a rocker might break, or even more hilariously, the chain or the belt might snap. There's quite a lot that can go wrong. When I said belt, I meant the timing belt, of course. It could break or skip a few teeth, whatever. Drive belts just disappear. We still haven't found ours, but we will, so no worries. Anyway, fellas, I understand that this all might sound absurd. I mean, taking a car and driving around in first gear. But seriously, be careful and attentive. And don't overload your engine like that. Otherwise, it's not gonna last long. Okay, fellas, we've tried this out. We're looking pretty good. The engine is seized. And that's all I have for you. Watch us, subscribe, send in those comments and suggestions. Give us a big thumbs up. All right, catch you later.